Fleming's marriage to, this is a rather stunning portrait, I think, by Lucian Freud of Anne Fleming. That's Lucian Freud, who was a great friend of Fleming. Or rather, he was a great friend of Anne Fleming. They got on very well, and they got on very badly. The marriage was a very complicated one. I rather love this poster too, which sat behind Fleming's desk when he had become a newspaper executive at the Sunday Times. And it looks exactly like a sort of spy chart, which indeed it partly was. These are all the different correspondents that Fleming deployed around the world, many of whom were actually working for MI6. And Fleming liked to imply that he was sort of running them in a kind of covert way. I don't think he was particularly. But isn't it wonderful? Look at that, everything's sort of radiating out from Britain. It's kind of,
it really is James Bond.
Isn't it? A real sign of sort of post-war power, that. All the villains are laid out here. We've got Rosa Klebb with her marvellous shoes. You've got Red Grant there. But my favourite, I think, has to be Goldfinger, partly because I love the story of the real Goldfinger, because the character was based on an architect whom Fleming had taken a sort of incredibly irrational but very deep dislike to, because he didn't like his buildings. Erno Goldfinger, and so he made one of his most famous villains into Goldfinger, and the real Goldfinger was absolutely livid, understandably, and indeed threatened to sue at one point. Had a terrific sense of humour failure, but
great revenge.
I know, isn't it tremendous? Exactly. But Fleming was always doing that. I mean, he loved putting either real characters or the names of his friends or indeed his enemies in his books as a way of kind of settling scores or flattering people. And almost everybody in the Bond books comes from somewhere. Fleming was a great gadget man. I mean, he loved things. He kind of, you know, from coffee makers to cars to widgets to things that went bang.
Real boy, wasn't it?
Real boy, and he gathered them, and he knew a lot about them. And all the detail, in a way, in the books is very firmly grounded in fact. I mean, although they seem fantastical, many of the machines, a lot of them came from some sort of original reality. There was a particular character that the spy people used as a creator of gadgets, who I think I'm certain became the model for Q in the final books. But Fleming gathered all sorts of different gizmos and different things, and he was very good at it. Many writers do this now, but in a way he was one of the first to describe how things work, so that you don't just get a ship, you get a tremendous complicated explanation of how this ship works and what mark it is and what the engines are, which of course most people forget the minute they've read it, and now we're used to it. But then it was quite revolutionary to describe things in that kind of detail.
Which are the gadgets you most?
Well, most of these gadgets come from the films.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is the spy hole clock through which.
Yes.
through which they look. I mean, I particularly love the briefcase too, because this is the sort of prototype briefcase that contains everything, you know, guns, explosives, money, dentonite for explosive, exactly. No, that's
fluoride.
with added fluoride.
Everyone should have one.
I particularly like this too, which is the model Aston Martin, which was actually, I think this one was given as a gift to Prince Andrew when he was a boy.
Prince Andrew?
I think so.
Does it actually work?
I think it does. I mean, I don't think it's got an engine in it, but I think you can move it around. But it's quite interesting the way that the Aston Martin, through the films really, has become Bond's trademark car. I'm not sure, in truth, why it became. It's down to the films, because actually in the books he only drives one Aston Martin. He's a Bentley man in the books. But the Aston Martin is indelibly attached to him as much as the sort of vodka martini is, really. I don't think you can sort of divorce the two, really. Even though he didn't drink very many.
Was it?
Yes, that's it. But he didn't drink very many of those either. So it's kind of in the books anyway.